My neighbor was good enough to string ribbon along the property line after they had it surveyed. So I'm just kind of following it up, starting to get nice and flat up in here. Ruger found a mud hole somewhere. What I'm going to do is show you how I pick trees to cut down versus trees to leave. My good old chainsaw, my good old steel chainsaw, it's a smaller MS-250, but man, this thing has saved my bacon. I keep 2 chains sharpened the entire time I'm up here. I bent my bar yesterday and had to get another bar. Ruger, you're supposed to be white, buddy. You know, he hangs around me up here while I'm cutting, and he's definitely figured out how far to stay away. All I have to do is kind of yell at him a little bit, and he's figured out that if he keeps a 60-70 foot distance away, he's usually out of range. So this tree's kind of become my home base up here. What I do is keep my bar oil and my gas and my lunch, a couple bottles of water, a couple Cliff Bars. Usually my wife throws a couple sandwiches in there. I keep an extra chain, a bar tool. I gotta put my lunch up high to keep old meathead from getting it. Look at it, smell it, smell my sandwich. If you look down to where the shop house is gonna be, I would bet I am not, I don't know, maybe 200 yards down there. Maybe a little more than that, not much more. My truck down there. So that means I'm approximately 600 feet up the hill. What that means is I have another 3,400 feet back to go to the end of my property. So the widest point in my property is about 600 feet wide, so it's kind of a long, narrow piece of property. I've got a lot of work. I've got a lot of years of figuring out how best to utilize what I have here. Okay, so right in the middle of all that is an old cedar tree that I want to prune up and save and cut everything else around it down. What I do when I'm cutting these trees down, what I try to do is look at the direction they're leaning and look at the direction where I have room to fall them. I try to fall them in a way where they're going to lay as flat on the ground as I can, and I oftentimes try to fall them downhill if possible, but they're not all leaning downhill. Oftentimes they're leaning uphill. What I'm going to do is just kind of go through the process of cutting down all these trees around this big cedar tree. This tree behind me is the tree I want to save. But now I've got 5 other cedars, more than that, 6, 7 other cedars that have to be cut down. And these are good enough size cedars that I can use those for the upright on the canopy for my sawmill. So I'm going to cut these down closer to the ground. I normally leave the stumps about 2 to 3 feet out of the ground, actually probably 3 to 4 feet out of the ground. I kind of learned that the hard way down low, where I cut some off too low and I nearly popped a couple tractor tires. So I leave them up higher, they're more visible, especially with all the brush on the ground, and it also is more leverage when it comes time to pull them out of the ground. Now, when I cut these trees down, I don't notch them on the backside because most of them aren't big enough to need that. I use the backside of the tree as a hinge, and I've learned to cut them and use that hinge to fall them exactly where I want them to go. And I've gotten fairly good at it. I can control where they need to fall. And it's a little bit of a safety mechanism. I always look up and down the trees before I cut them to first look and see which direction the wind is blowing. Also to see any dead. You can see in that tree right there, there's a nice big dead branch that could potentially fall and bust me in the head, have a little widowmaker situation. But I always try to be alert and aware of what's going on around me. I wear my earbuds for ear protection, my sunglasses for eye protection. I don't wear chaps most of the time because they're pretty hot. The chaps that I have are the commercial chaps. I think what I'd like to do at some point is get me a piece of brain tan elk hide to make some chaps out of, because I think they would breathe better. But I've learned to use that little saw that I have in a way where, thank goodness, I haven't had too many issues with it. I haven't had too many close calls. But I'm gonna keep working this. I'm gonna keep following these trees right here and getting this all thinned out. And then what I'm gonna do is prune up this tree as high as I can reach. So this is what I ended up with. I reached up as high as I could with that chainsaw, pruned up everything that I could reach, cut everything down around it that I thought was too close. You know, right in the middle of all this, there's probably 15 or 20 of these dead maples. And to me, this just kind of confirms that there's competition going on here. And these cedar trees, the ones that I cannot leave, I'm going to make into posts. These are the best posts that I could have on the property for sure. And the more I look, the more I see. Another one right there. They're all over. Now again, I would rather have cedar trees, at least some cedar trees. So I'm not going to cut them all down, but I'm definitely going to cut the maples down around them and try and promote these cedars to grow tall and healthy. This tree will definitely outlive me, and that's a good thing. You know, I hope that these trees that have been here a long time continue to stay here. So this is what I pack up the hill every day when I come up here to cut trees. Saw, a few tools. There's a bar tool over there somewhere, a second chain, full gallon of gas, usually close to a half gallon or a gallon of bar oil. I try to use the Still bar oil with my Still saw. I also use the Still 2-stroke oil because I want this saw to last as long as it can. It's a little bit more expensive. I have developed a love for the Cliff bars because they give me some substance. They last a while. My wife usually makes me a couple of sandwiches. When it gets real warm in the summertime, I almost always do peanut butter and honey sandwiches because I need a little sugar when I'm sweating like crazy and working hard. The other thing that I always have with me is my Axio. Now, this company I've been with for 7 years. This is the company that basically pays me to be a full-time homesteader. 100 milligrams of caffeine. I like my caffeine, but it's also got electrolytes. It's also got a lot of all natural, 100% all natural herbs and just things that are necessary to help me function well. I love this company. I'll put a link in the description showing the products that we offer. You know, I'll be loyal to this company till the day I die, just simply because of the lifestyle that they've given me. But like I said, I've learned that it's a lot easier to pack everything up the hill once, and while I'm working up here, leave it up here. I'll leave my chainsaw under the tree here, try and keep it out of the weather. I'll leave everything that I can up here, except for the gas can I usually take down and refill. And then like tomorrow when I come back up, I'll pack up 4 or 5 more bottles of water, lunch again, and usually a couple more Axios. If you look up that draw, up that canyon, right up that way, you can see, first of all, you can see, like, that's Terrell's hillside over there. You can see where the last year or 2 years ago they had that forest fire. But you can see there's a draw that runs right up that way. Now that's Forest Service over there. That's where I was actually standing yesterday when I made that video showing where the fire was. But there is a spring up that way. And the Cattlemen's Association has turned it into I think they put a concrete retainer around it. But it's 1.5 miles on a four-wheeler, and there is a trail that you can take a four-wheeler back there. But somebody also told me that there's an old headstone for a baby that many years ago, I think over 100 years ago, died, and they buried it back there. Actually down on Terrell's property, and there's the lot below Terrell's property, which we call the orchard lot, which is down that way. One of the old families that homesteaded up here originally, a friend of mine, Cameron, told me that the Blackfoot Indians used to summer down here on this creek, and that you can oftentimes find arrowheads and sometimes even pottery shards down there. So a lot of cool little stuff. But I've been told that spring up there is some of the best tasting water that you can get. So I'd love to take a 5-gallon jug up there or something and fill it up with water to have around the property here. I'd much rather have that than drink out of these bottles of water that claim to be purified water. But I got tired of running the chainsaw, got a little hot and sweaty, and decided I'd take a walk up here under the or to follow that southern fence line. And this is so bizarre back here. It's just so unbelievably pretty. It gets steep, then it flattens out. It gets steep, then it flattens out. And as I'm walking along the fence line here, I find another just gigantic fir tree. So there's 3 right in a row, almost equally spaced. And I've never made it to the back corner of the property. I think I'm going to try and do it right now, although I'm dying of thirst and I left my water down there. I don't know what I was thinking. About 35, 40 feet away from that first one is another just as big fir tree. All right, so I broke out of the maple trees following the property line, and it gets into kind of the sagebrush a little bit. And I'm about halfway to the top of my property. I own all the way up to that ridge, and I don't have it in me to hike all the way back there right now. The way that the terrain changes is super interesting the higher we get. I'm about 6,200, 6,300 feet in elevation right here, and you just kind of break out of these maples into this sagebrush. You can see the lake that I drive by on the way to get up to the turnoff to come up to our property. Our house is about 2,000 feet that way.